Glad you could join us for our service. It was recorded in our fellowship hall due to problems with heat in the sanctuary above. May you be blessed. In our series, They Saw Jesus, and we are in a little cutout right now that Luke is telling some of the stories that Jesus told. He puts them all, strings them all together, and we read part of it from Matthew. So Matthew has that one story about the 90 and 9 and actually had more detail in it. Sorry, Charles, that you didn't have that verse, because then you would have explained it a little bit for us. And I've been more ready to present this. But anyway, we have Luke who is sharing this. So these are stories that Luke did not hear himself, but others remembered them and told them. And as you look at how brief they actually are, you realize this is a recollection. You know, when somebody tells the story, they embellish it, right? There's some details they're going to work into it. But when you remember it, you just kind of hit the high points. So we're going to look at this story, and there's a series of different stories. And so we want to look and try to find the theme. Now, here is the theme that I found, and it's the title of the message: Heaven's Point of View. El punto de vista del cielo. Okay. So we're going to look at these stories, and we're going to look at it from the human point of view, but then Jesus is going to give us heaven's point of view. We begin with a verse that sets the stage where he is in this story and who's present. And I've highlighted some of the words here so that they stand out a little bit better. We're in Luke chapter 15. If you want to come over here, you can come so you can see it. Whatever. Alan, with a big strong voice, read for us verse 1.
Sure. And drew near unto him all the publicans and sinners for to hear him.
Okay, so who's coming close to him, and drawing near to him? Publicans and sinners. All right. Publicanos y pecadores. Now, who are they?
They're the common people.
Common people, that's right. These are not the leaders, these are the common people. Okay? And they're not only just the common people, but publicans are the outsiders, because they work for the government. They work for the government. You know? Have you ever noticed that? It's a funny thing that happens. You can have a friend, you know, that at work that you guys are really close, and then suddenly he becomes a leader, and then suddenly you're not so close. And so, because of the connection with the government, they hold them in at a distance. They're not too sure about them. Now, who are the sinners? Well, that's everybody. That should be everybody, right? Everybody's a sinner. But they're not thinking of just everybody. The sinners are the people that are notoriously on the outside because they're sinners. And that would be prostitutes, people that are not considered equal with everybody else.
Tax collectors.
Tax collectors would be the publicans, yeah. So we got the tax collectors and the outcasts among the women who came to hear him. They were drawn to him. Se acercaban a él. They are drawn because what he is telling them is revolutionary. It changes everything. They would be trapped in their life and the way that they were living if it weren't for the message that Jesus is giving. He is giving them hope. And so they have come to hear the hopeful message that Jesus has to present. Verse 2 gives us a contrast. All right? Let's see. Jerry, could you read verse 2 for us?
And the Pharisees and the scribes murmured, saying, This man receiveth sinners, and eateth with them.
Okay. So now we've got the Pharisees and the scribes. They're on the other side of the spectrum. As far as everybody looks at them, they're the good people. But what are the good people saying? This man receiveth sinners and eateth with them. And what would Jesus say if he heard them say that out loud? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
I came to seek the lost.
Right. A word that's not quite as respectful. Yeah, come on up. Would be duh. Of course, that's his purpose. But they were using it as an insult. Yeah, this is, what kind of a guy is this? He receives sinners and he eats with them? Okay, now the rest of the story is not about the eating so much. He spake a parable unto them. This was a moment. He knows his audience. He's got people there that are all ears, and he's got people that are there looking for something to find fault with. Okay? He's got both groups, and so he tells a story. Why tell a story? People can relate to the story, and it's sneaking around the subject without going directly at it, right? And so you're caught listening to the story, and in the middle of listening to the story, you don't realize that the snake is right there ready to bite you. Yeah. Kind of like the story that Nathan told David about the man with the sheep and everything, and David's really engaging in the story, and then, bam, thou art the man, came right in. Well, Jesus didn't exactly do the thou art the man in these.
For having so many wives, David certainly didn't know how to read between the lines in the story that was being told to him.
You would think, but yeah. Yeah, but stories are a good way to be able to carry a message and then let the person chew on it, think about it. So he told them a story. Well, not just one story, but it's going to be 3, and then there's even more in the next chapter. So it's a bunch of stories. But this first one is identified as una parábola, a parable. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he lose one of them? Now, how do you know if you've lost one out of 100 sheep? How does that happen?
A shepherd knows.
A shepherd knows. Yeah.
It's his business to know.
It's his business. So he knows them by their characteristics. It's not just by number. He knows which one is missing. Somebody's not here. Yeah. And so, if he loses one of them, does he not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after that which is lost until they find it? Now, isn't there a risk involved in that? Okay, you go after one, you leave the 99. Maybe there's going to be another oveja extraviada. How do you say that in English? Naughty sheep. What did you say?
I was going to say it in Spanish.
Okay. I don't, the word comes to me in Spanish.
You had a good dog.
A wandering one. Yeah, another wandering sheep, And maybe, so you leave the 99, you're going to come back and you're going to be missing 6, or more, right? So there's a risk in his leaving the 99, but the risk is worth it. Because one is missing. Mm-hmm. And he says, what man of you? In other words, they would understand the motivation for doing this. Anybody that's a shepherd has a love for the sheep, and so will be concerned if one is missing. And so the one that's missing, you leave everything else, everybody else is left here, and you go out to try to find the one who's lost until the one is found. So you can picture that. We're just going to look at some pictures and imagine what was going through his mind. All right? Here he is. He's counted his sheep. He knows which one's missing. He's making a decision, and he decides to leave the sheep behind and to go out and look for the other one. And it can't be in an easy place, or otherwise it'd be back. So it's going to be someplace where it can't get to its. Yeah. Oh, ¿tienes traducción?
Sí.
Ah, qué bueno. Okay. Chévere. All right. So he goes out into the mountainside, and he's looking, and what's in his mind as he's walking? What is he thinking about?
Lord, help me find that
Masato? Okay. Lord, help me find it. Okay. All right, that would be one thing. What else is he thinking?
What's he left behind?
Okay, you can think, but he's trying to find the one. So what is he? If you've got an animal that's missing, what are you going to be looking for? What are you going to be listening
life.
for? Come on.
Let's use the life.
Okay, so some sign of life, right? Okay, and when an animal is in trouble, they're going to make a sound. They're going to make a sound. So he's going out listening for the faintest sound of that animal. He wants to know where it is, and he wants to know, with the drifting winds, where's it coming from? Because he's got to get there and to rescue its sheep, the sheep. So then when he finds the sheep, okay, what's his state of mind when he finds the sheep?
Joy.
Scold the sheep? Is that what he's going to do?
Joy. Hug it, pick it up, and
Yeah.
oh, I'm happy
Okay.
to see you.
He is grateful that he has found the sheep.
Mm-hmm.
He holds the sheep to him. Maybe the sheep is cold, Maybe the sheep is afraid. I've been learning an awful lot with the new little doggie that we've got at the house. She's got issues. She's got issues. She's had something in the past, right, Adam? Something in the past. Yeah. Adam came in this morning, and she was afraid of him at first. And she knows Adam.
Oh,
Okay, so this is a little doggie with issues. But she's as sweet as she can be, right? She's just a sweet little doggie. Susan's out of town, and I'm there by myself with the dogs. And so I said, okay, guys, we're going outside. And whoop, there's little Benji. He's just a little happy. And, oh, can I come too? This is Sky. And she comes running. And so we're, all right, let's get going. And then we go to the door, and she's, I don't know if I can go through that door. There must be something terrible there. I might get shut in it. And she's just got these weird phobias, And so I have to just reassure her. It's okay. It's okay. Come on, sweetie. Yeah, this is going to be fun. We're going outside. Yeah. And I say some other words that I'm not going to repeat here, but about, the reason why we're going out there. And we just, it's going to be fun. We're going, And so, all right, let's go. And so she goes, 1, 2, 3, oh, out the door. Does she do that with you too? Yeah. And then we go out, and she's on like a mission as a secret agent. But it's gotten better in our neighborhood because we don't have as many cars as Adam's neighborhood, and so we go out, and she's sometimes she'll hear she'll step on a stick, crack. Oh, what was that? She just goes crazy, and so I said, "Come here, Sky." And I come next to her, and I say, "It's okay, sweetie. We're okay. It's okay." And then she calms down. And she looks up and "Oh, yeah, everything's right with the world. Okay."
you're there.
Yeah.
You're
And so then we go on, and then sometimes I've got 2 of them, and I feel like Hercules in one of those movies because Benji's going one way and Sky's going the other, and okay, guys, come on back together. But so we have this dynamic that's going on. Benji's cool the whole time. He's wonderful, but she's got these fears. And you think about this little sheep, has just gone through this harrowing experience, getting stuck, being away from all the rest of the sheep. They love being together, just like dogs, kind of a pack too. And so the words of the shepherd are going to be words of reassurance. It's okay, sweetie. I got you. You're okay now. You're okay now. And so he puts the sheep up on his shoulders. And he's secure. That sheep is secure now. Josh Groban has a song that probably a lot of you have heard, "You Raised Me Up." And every time I hear that song, I picture my dad with my little brother on his shoulders as we go for a walk. There's no more secure and happier place than there on my dad's big, broad shoulders. He's taking him, he's in charge, he's in care. And so the shepherd takes the sheep and brings the sheep back home. Now, I didn't throw it in here, but I was going to. I didn't do this one. But what is heaven's point of view in this story? What is heaven's point of view?
He's not willing that any be lost.
It's his desire that none be lost. Yeah. Now, Could Jesus have told a story about a shepherd that went out and didn't find the sheep and came back and didn't find the sheep? He could have told a story like that, because sometimes that happens. Yeah, that happens. But he told us the story that is the story of hope, because he wanted us to understand heaven's point of view, what God would desire for each of us. He doesn't want anyone to be lost. This is God's desire. This is heaven's point of view. But Jesus isn't finished. He's got some more stories. Okay, now the sheep, you can kind of feel with the sheep, because it's an animal that has almost human-like emotions. Anybody been around sheep? Anybody known sheep? No? Okay, so I guess in some ways it's like the intelligence of a dog. You see the dog kind of looks at you, and they kind of, sometimes when they do that little thing with their head, they cock their head. It's like, what's going on? Well, a sheep, we had some friends in Hickory that had quite a menagerie of animals, different animals, and they had a sheep, and I was looking at it, and the sheep was looking at me not with a dumb look, but with more of an intelligent look. There's something about it, and I think that's why the heart of the shepherd knits so tightly with the sheep, because there's this sympathy feeling, that these animals have for humans, and they're not just dumb animals. They're dumb in the sense they don't speak, but they have intelligence, and they have sometimes wisdom. Sometimes they understand things, Yeah, my best friend in my adolescent years was our cat, because I could sit and I could talk to my cat, and he would just listen to everything, the whole thing, and he would just stay there and rub up against my legs, and it was such wisdom, to have that cat there to listen, Blackie was his name. Yeah. Sometimes I talk about things to our animals, that we have. We have a remaining cat. We had 2 cats, and 1 cat died. And I knew that little buddy was missing his brother. So for the first several nights, I just come in where he was and just sit down, and we would talk about his brother. What a good little fellow he was. And I understood that he was missing him, and he'd just stay there with me, There's something about that, and I think that's why he used these animals to kind of get through to us, to kind of get underneath our radar, and so that we could understand heaven's point of view. But now he's going to tell stories about things that don't have emotions, that are still lost. They have no awareness of their lostness. A sheep knows, but either what woman having 10 pieces of silver, if she lose 1 piece, does not light a candle and sweep the house and seek diligently till she find it. Now, this is a very brief description, but we've got to take a look at what does it mean she has 10 pieces of silver. Is this just her pocket money for going for groceries? No, this is not grocery money. Silver is not grocery money. This is her special, maybe dowry or something that was given to her. It's a collection of 10 pieces. And what's a collection if you're missing a piece? It's like that puzzle that you have that's missing 1 piece. It's like, man. Or your Lego set when you're a kid, right? You're missing that 1 piece. So what would you do, right? Well, she lights a candle. Why does she light a candle? Because houses in that time were dark, right? They didn't have incandescent light. And so, you didn't have big windows, because if you have big windows, you also have big rain through the window. So you have to have small windows. So these are houses with small windows. It's dark inside. I kind of got an idea of it in Ethiopia. They had a church without electricity. And so inside the church is one of the darkest places you could be. So we did a lot of our meetings outside. It's dark inside. And the only way she's going to see is she has to light a candle and sweep the floor. Now, okay, again, why is that?
Dirt, probably.
The floor is probably dirt. Yeah, okay? And so when you sweep, you kind of stir it up, and if it got covered up by a little bit of dirt, you may be able to find it. So she's sifting through the dirt
to find that one piece that the set is not complete without. She's got to have that piece. So what is it telling us? She looks in the closest way to try to find it, and then she finds it. Oh, what a good feeling. Yeah, what a good feeling. And so she rejoices in the fact that she found it. When she found it, she calleth her friends and her neighbors together, saying, Rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I had lost. Now, she could have said to herself, this is embarrassing. I lost one of those pieces. I mean, this is not something you're supposed to lose, you know? But that's not her attitude, is it? Her attitude is, what I could have lost forever, I found. And again, we see heaven's point of view. He wants us to understand. Likewise, I say unto you, there is joy in the presence of the angels over one sinner that repenteth. We enter into the feelings of this woman who's lost something. We begin to understand a little bit how heaven sees our experiences and we human beings. So we're going to go now to another story, and this one is a little bit longer. We're going to a tale that has to do with a family. This is one that we're well familiar with. But I think there's some things here that we should analyze. I think so far, even though we can look at the first two, there are two things that are lost, right? What's the first one?
Sheep.
A sheep. Okay. The second one? A coin. Okay. These are things that are lost. What does that mean? They were once in a safe place. They were once in a place where they understood they were okay, or the one that was keeping them knew that they were okay. Right? So these are stories about people who have been in a good, safe place, but who get lost. Now, in one case, you've got an animal that is aware of its being lost. In another case, this coin has no consciousness of where it is. And that's possible, that people can slide into those positions, even though they've been in a place of safety, are not even aware that they're out of place. But heaven knows. And now we're going to get into a story that has even more dynamics about it. A certain man had 2 sons. Okay? What do we know about the situation so far? It doesn't talk about the wife. The focus is on the 2 sons. The 2 sons, obviously, one is older and one is younger. In the Bible lands, when a son is older, there's a lot of responsibility that goes with being older. Their whole social security system is built on passing along an inheritance to the older son so that he can take care of the parent when the parent is no longer a participant in his own upkeep. He can't support himself. So the inheritance is not just about the benefit of the children, as we often think of inheritances, but it's to take care of the parents as well. So that adds a little bit more of a dynamic as we look at this story. There's going to be an inheritance. Now, of these 2 sons, we know this about the story. The younger of these 2, he gets a inheritance. But how much is it compared to this older brother? It's less. It's less. Because he gets something that'll help him to get started in life. But the father has to set aside more with the older one because it's also part of his support as he gets older. Okay, so he's a little bit less. But this younger of them says to his father, Father, give me the portion of the goods that falleth to me. Okay. Now, the verse contains what the father does, but you don't see any debate in here at all. That's puzzling to me. I mean, what do you mean? I mean, if one of my kids, decided that they wanted to take off and they wanted part of some money that I was supposed to give them, and I think there would be a little bit more debate, about it. And are you sure that's what you want to do? Is that have you thought ahead? Have you thought ahead? What are you going to do with it? And what's your business plan? And what have you thought about? But we don't hear any of that in this story. It says, and he divided unto him his living. Just went ahead and did it. Now, this is the human point of view. The human point of view. We see now as the very most important thing. We want it now. Everything is about what we can see, making things work now. And the inheritance is supposed to be about the future. Now, did he not have his needs met when he asked for it now?
He had everything he needed.
He was in a good position. In fact, later he's going to come back to mind that he did have it pretty good. But he's looking at, and he wants it now. That's the human point of view. We see it now. And it's hard for us to think about later until maybe we've started losing some things, and then the sweet by and by becomes a little bit sweeter. So he gives it to him. And he takes off. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, took his journey into a far country. Okay, now wait a second. Why is he going into a far country?
So he can establish himself and be the boss.
Okay, yeah, he's going to be independent. So, in part, it's for some independence. But it may also be for lack of blowback from family and friends.
Like he's rejecting everything his father stood for.
He doesn't want any of the people that know his dad to know what's going on. So he's going to go off on his own. He took his journey into a far country, but what does he end up doing? There wasted his substance with riotous living. He wants it now. Of course, we're going to throw in a little picture here. It's not written out in the story, but you can see it. You can imagine it. What's the father doing when his son is leaving? Yeah. He's concerned, but he's got to let his son do what he's going to do. He watches him as he leaves down the road. Now, here's where the son gets involved, and he makes some friends, and for a while he's got some spending money. He can blow it on what he wants. And so he goes off and he has a lot of fair weather friends. Fair weather friends. He can help them to have a good time. So they live it up. And he's partying, and he's got girlfriends, he's got all the rest. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. So it's not just enough. The story is not just enough that he ran out of cash, but there's a famine in the land. Now, what does it mean when there's a famine in the land?
Well, indeed.
It's hard to find a job.
Yeah.
See, if things are going well, you just go sign up and you work for this farmer over here, because you always need some workers, right? Okay. But he's having a hard time even finding a job. How do we know that? And that's the reaction of his friends. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. Okay. Well, we're assuming that this young man is a good little Jewish boy. So feeding pigs is not something that he would want to do. But what else has he got? He's got to find something. And so he takes the job. Yeah, you can see that look on his face. So feeding pigs. Well, this is kind of clean, but feeding time is not so clean. He would fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. So he's got a job, but he's not getting paid up front. He's got to get his pay down the way, and he's still hungry. So he's looking at the carob pods that he's got, and he's thinking, those look pretty good. Just the rough food. And by the way, carob's not actually a bad thing. During World War II, in Spain, people stayed alive using carob or algarroba. It sustained them. It was better than nothing. So here he is. He's hit bottom. He can't go very much lower. He's out of money. He's barely eating. And he starts thinking about his father. When he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare? And I perished with hunger. What am I doing here? What am I doing here? Dad would certainly hire me on, he's that kind of guy. So his plan is to go back and work for his dad. He's already spent his money. So why would his dad want him back? I will arise and go to my father. He's got it all planned out in his mind. And I will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee. My fault. I'm totally to blame. This was not well thought out, and I am totally to blame. And truthfully, I am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me one of thy hired servants. This is his plan. He's going to go back and just be hired on, because he's got to eat. So he arose, he came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. Yeah. That's heaven's point of view. That's heaven's point of view.
He never gave up looking.
No, that's what a dad does.
That's right.
That's what a dad does.
But did he put him out to work with the...
Yeah, okay, so he's coming back. And, if his dad were just a real good businessman, he could see something coming up here that, this would work out quite well, he spent all of his money. There's no more inheritance, right? He divided it up, and so he gave him his portion. There's nothing more that he really owes him, It's not some kind of arrangement that he needs to come up with money. But that's not the point of view of a dad. And he's ready to make his little speech. The son says to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and I'm no more worthy to be called thy son. What does the dad say? The father said to the servants, bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. He's barefoot. This is heaven's point of view. This is heaven's point of view. You've used it all up. What more is there to give you? It brings out of the stashes. He brings out of the reserves. He puts the best clothes on him. He doesn't want his friends to see the kid the way he looked. He doesn't want his son to be embarrassed that he's come back. He wants him to know he's loved and appreciated. All of the symbols of that time to show his appreciation for him. And then the father says, bring hither the fatted calf and kill it. Now what does that mean? The fatted calf. Yeah, some people kind of, they don't have a good comparison. You know, they didn't use their cattle quite the same way we eat meat in this country today. You know, they ate more grain, and then they kind of added a little bit of protein added to it. The fatted calf is for a special occasion. You know, here in this country, we get the fatted calf every day, and we have the fatted calf in our hearts. So we have, you know, health problems because we overdo on the protein and the fat. But this was a special occasion. Bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. We're going to rejoice because this son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. Now, that could be the end of the story. It sounds like a good place to end. We have heaven's point of view already, but we got to get another glimpse of man's point of view. And we get man's point of view in the story of the older brother. So let's get through it quickly. It's sad, but it is where humans are.
Yeah.
Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. What's going on? So he asks, what is this all merriment about? And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. What's the relationship between the two brothers? What's been going on through this period of time that the brother's been gone?
Not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair.
The way you've treated him. I stayed here and took care of you.
Yep. He's angry. And he wouldn't go in. Therefore came his father out and entreated him. Son, what's going on? Well, he had a relationship that he could tell him, so he did. He answering said to his father, lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. It's not fair. I have served thee. Well, I guess that's sort of that way. I kind of remember as a kid being my dad's little gopher. Did any of you guys have that with your dad? I remember working on the roof one time. Didn't know what he was doing, but he said, son, this is a job, you know, and I'm just kind of waiting and watching. And then one time he left me, he said, I want you to clean out my garage. Now, that was a big job. And so I was like, I'm my dad's little flunky. And I didn't actually like the feeling too much. As it turns out, I didn't clean his garage. And he came back and he said, son, how come you didn't clean out the garage? And I said, well, I thought about it, Dad. And I thought, well, this is the way he likes it. It's the way he has it. And he looked at me like, okay, you're right. Because obviously that's the way he kept it. So why should I clean up for him? But I had that little feeling, serving my dad's flunky. That's a human point of view. That's how this young man felt. And he said to him, son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. He's the older brother. Everything is going to be passed down to him. He'll inherit everything that his brother didn't take away. So his dad's not joshing him. He's telling the truth. You've always been with me. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad. For this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost is found. Can you look into this a little bit with the point of view of heaven? Instead of being envious of other people and what they get, and God's amazing mercy for those who have used up his resources, but he's still got more. Can we look at it as the Father does? That there was one who was virtually dead, didn't even know if he was ever going to return. But he's come back. Rejoice. That's heaven's point of view. Doesn't tell us whether the brother ever got it together. It's just that story for us to understand. But in the parable of the father's remonstrance with the elder son was heaven's tender appeal to the Pharisees. All that I have is thine, not as wages, but as a gift. Like the prodigal, you can receive it only as the unmerited bestowal of the Father's love. We don't have heaven because we work for it, even if we are the older brother and we never strayed. It's always a gift.